Hey guys, before we get started, we've got a little winning to announce. So last week on the show, I offered up some subscriptions to my site, dfsondemand.com. I've got some winners for you. So I drew names out of a hat, and from the YouTube videos, Matt Hooper is your winner. From the iTunes reviews, it is Aggie DFS. I have already reached out to you if I had your contact information. If not, feel free to reach out to me through the website. You can shoot me an email or tweet at me. We'll get you all set up on the site. So congratulations. We're going to do it again. It's something that worked out pretty well last week. I think it's good for everybody. So here we go. If you want to win a month to DFS On Demand, get access to all the tools that you see in these videos, join our Slack channel. Here's what you've got to do. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. Helps everybody. Leave a comment below. I'm giving you the option. You can have the 10K guys or you can have the field. Tell me who is going to win the golf tournament. So you can choose either DJ, Fowler, Matsuyama, and Gary Woodland. That's the fourth. You can have those four or you can have the field. Choose which one you are taking. If you're listening on iTunes, same thing. Leave a 5-star review, say something nice about the show, and let me know if you want the 10K guys or the field. We'll draw it up. We'll infuse some more people into the Slack channel. It'll be a lot of fun. Enough for now. Talk to you in a second with the preview. What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. That does not roll off the tongue because it is the first year we have seen this tournament. This spot in the schedule would have been previously occupied by the Quicken Loans National. Gets a rebrand, gets a relocation. We are headed to Detroit, Michigan, the Detroit Golf Club, which has never been used on the PGA Tour before. So there is going to be a lot of speculation. There's going to be a lot of assumptions made. Personally, I'm probably just going to be focusing a lot on the better players. I think a week that does not have course history opens up the field a little bit more. We don't have any specialists. We don't have any guys that can bank on their experience here because they don't have any. So I think it opens up the field a bit more. I think the favorites are not nearly as big favorites. You might see someone like an Adam, I don't want to say Adam Long this week, but someone like an Adam Long, a 200 to 1 shot, 100 to 1, 150 to 1 shot might be the week for them to come in and come through because it's going to level the playing field a little bit because of the fact that there's, been no PGA tournaments here. Before we move along any further, Chris Hollander of, I think his Twitter handle is @UndoneRSG, did a really nice little intel where he took kind of Google Earth images and put together what he thought the course is going to look like. Frankly, I have zero idea how accurate it is going to be, but it's one of the best things that I've seen thus far this week. I will link that tweet in the description below so that you can go through and see hole by hole what we think Detroit Golf Club is going to play like this week. What my opinion is, based on the a little bit of intel that I've been able to do, based on some of the images that we've seen and some of the descriptions on their own website and on the PGA Tour site, the fairways can be tree lined. I think in the past they were even more tree lined. They lost a lot of trees, but there are still some holes where if you spray it, you're going to be in prison. Okay, so driving accuracy going to be pretty important. And this is a 4 par 5 course. It's going to play your traditional par 72, which is 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s, and the rest are par 4s. And probably 3 of these par 5s are reachable by the entire field. We're going to see some eagles out there this week. I think par 5 scoring is going to be pretty important. Okay, I'm going to kind of go through this. This is almost a first look for me too, where we're going through this together. Now, the cheat sheet obviously does not have tournament or course history in it this week because it doesn't exist. What we do have is 4 guys over $10,000 led by Dustin Johnson, who hits the elusive $12,000 number on DraftKings, which is basically what we've seen this year where that's the most they'll ever assign anybody. We've seen a lot of 11-9s, 11-7, kind of in that range for some of these events, but DJ gets to 12K. He is basically a 6-1 favorite to win this golf tournament, followed by Ricky Fowler at 11-2, Gary Woodland at 10-9, and Hideki at 10-2. I haven't started making lineups yet, but I'm going to do my best to try to get DJ in as many of them as possible. I'm willing to spend the $12,000. I think it's very clear he is absolutely the best player in this field. Tee to green, he's elite. If we go and switch over to the strokes gained tool for a second, you can see the thing that hindered him at the US Open and even at the RBC Canadian was the flat stick. He lost all 4 rounds. He lost strokes putting in all 4 rounds at the US Open, which I haven't gone back and looked, but I would venture to say he has not done that in a while. Okay. There's a chance he's never done that. I will go back and I'll look and I'll see if I can tweet this out. So follow me on Twitter, but I am going to assume DJ has not lost strokes putting in all 4 rounds in a tournament, maybe ever. I don't know. It's probably been a long time. But he did at the U.S. Open, and it buried him. Tee to green, you can see gained all 4 rounds. He was just his normal self, which is what we would expect to see. What I really like about DJ in all formats is that, well, I shouldn't say in all formats, because if you're betting him outright, it's completely different. But what I love about him in DFS or just in general is his absolute worst events are like T20. Like, he just never seems to really bury you. He might miss a cut once a year. Even at the RBC, even at the US Open where he did not play well, a 20th and a 35th, that's obviously nothing to scoff at. It was just a few starts ago. He had a 2nd place at the PGA Championship. I think we are willing to just like you don't keep DJ down very long. He doesn't go on these extended streaks of finishes in the mid 20s and the 30s. It just doesn't happen. So I'll be trying to get to as much DJ as I can, and we'll see what kind of sacrifices I have to make a little bit further down the board. Outside of that, I'm gonna skip the rest of these 10K guys right now because I'm gonna blow through this cheat sheet pretty quickly since there's not a tournament history to compare it against. I'm just gonna point out a couple of names that I think are interesting, and then we're actually gonna go to the key stats. We're gonna go to the strokes gained. That's where I think we're valuable this week. So moving down, you get last week's champion Ches Reavie at 9,700. Pretty steep. 2 really good finishes in a row. You won't get me to spend $9,700 on him. I would actually prefer to get someone like Patrick Reed at 93. I think he's knocking on the door a little bit. We've seen better play from him. I know it's only been a 32nd and a 30th his last 2 starts, but we've seen better rounds from him. We've seen him go lower at times, make a lot of birdies. If we get to a place where everything can kind of click for him, which at times we have seen, Patrick Reed at 93 feels like a pretty good pivot compared to the rest of these guys in the $9,000 range. There are a few interesting names down at the bottom of the 9s and the top of the $8,000 range. Quickly on Billy Horschel, $9,000 just doesn't seem like enough for the guy, especially in this field. It's not that I think Billy Horschel is like the greatest player on the earth. What he does is he makes a ton of cuts. He grinds, he competes. He's got 4 straight top 30 finishes, including 3 straight top 25s. 2 of them are not 3 straight top 25s. 3 of those 4 are top 25s. 2 of them are top 20s. 1 is a top 10. Always competes. This is the type of field I think you want to get him in. I think that he should probably be more expensive than maybe Kisner, Reed, and Moore. Those guys only have like a little bit better recent history than Billy Horschel does, and Horschel just kind of flies under the radar a couple $100 cheaper than everybody else. I also think his ownership probably comes in pretty low because I also like, and I'm sure everyone else is going to like, $8,900 Joaquin Niemann, who, if you remember when he broke in, I guess it was last year, and through, I don't know, 4 or 5 tournaments, if he had enough rounds to qualify, he would have been like first in every single statistical category. Like, yeah, obviously. Like, we know the kid has game. It went away for a while, but he shows up. He pops at the Travelers, ends up finishing 5th, which is now 4 straight made cuts, a 31st, a 27th, a 31st, and that 5th place finish. He cannot putt, which what we've talked about in other weeks is if you can't do one thing, I hope that it's putting. And if you're great everywhere else, it can kind of bail you out a little bit. So I wouldn't call him great at everything else, but he is a guy trending in the right direction. 8,900. I bet you he's super, super popular. And then another guy who I think might end up being pretty popular, and again, probably for good reason, Victor Hovland at 8,400. Faded a bit at the Travelers, right? Ended up finishing 54th. His big issue is that putter. Again, if he gets it hot, if he plays closer to neutral, he's in a pretty good spot to be able to compete. The kid has serious game. I don't know how long it'll take him to win. He's going to win on the PGA Tour. We'll see. Really, really impressive stuff from him. All right, I want to jump over to some other tools here because I think these are going to be the most interesting areas for this week. Obviously, with no course history, I could not run my normal regression model and get all of the key stats. So what I've done is I've guessed a little bit, and I've given you an opportunity to take a lot of the main stat categories and look at them for yourself. So what I've done is I've just thrown together, regular scoring average, SDFA, scoring by par, 3, 4, 5, birdie or better, and then the good drive percentage and the strokes gained stats. So let's look at a couple of these that I think are going to be pretty important. As usual, let's just start with birdie or better because it's usually the same guys. Let's get that out of the way. Gary Woodland, who is, this is the guy that I said, let's wait to talk about the other 10K guys because Gary Woodland, I know he just won the US Open. I know for whatever reason in golf, we don't really play the guy who won the last time he started, but Gary Woodland at 10-9 leads the field in birdie or better percentage, about 26.5%, which is pretty significantly more than the guy in second place. The place he does his damage is par fives, averaging 4.4 strokes per par five. It is the best in this field, I believe. Let me just sort that. Before you say I'm lying to you, let me just confirm that's the lowest in this field. It is. He's also one of the lowest in par 4 scoring. So, hey, that seems pretty good. And he is great on approaches. He's $10,900. This seems like if you're going to not play DJ, Gary feels like the nice solution to save $1,100 and get a guy who should be able to destroy these par 5s. Make a ton of birdies, and obviously has the chops to win. He is your reigning U.S. Open champion. Outside of that, Wyndham Clark does show up here at 7,100 in par 5 scoring. He doesn't do much else well. Putts a little bit, but loses a ton of strokes on approaches. I'd be a little bit concerned there. There is this interesting name. I think I talked about him last week. Bubba continues to be here. Bubba, for everything that he does right, there's so much he does wrong. He's so good off the tee, elite off the tee. He is so good at par 5s, elite in par 5s, but he just kills you almost everywhere else. Just not a great approach player. His putter's been bad. I will probably sprinkle Bubba in because I know the long-term upside that is there, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about him. The guys that round out the top 5 in par 5 scoring are Troy Merritt and Luke List. They're $7,000 and $7,700 respectively. Let's also go over to good drive percentage. So this is not an accuracy stat. Good drive percentage is the combination of you hitting either the fairway or the first cut, I believe, and then hitting the green or the fringe. So basically, what it does is it says, okay, do you hit the ball in the fairway and then do you hit the green, or do you convert to that, right? Do you give yourself an opportunity to make putts? Do you hit it close? Do you not get into a bunch of trouble? That's essentially what good drive is. I like to incorporate it more on either tricky courses where you have to be on the right side of the fairway, which we kind of see down in Sea Isle like once a year, where you've got to be on the right side of the fairway and you have to be able to attack pins, or places that have tree-lined fairways because you've got to be really accurate, and a lot of times, again, you want to be on the correct side of the fairway. So good drive percentage actually opens up a little bit more. Ryan Moore does lead the way here. So he played well enough last week. I had a bunch of him, played fine, $9,500. Ches Reavie, your winner last week, $9,700. Corey Connors, winner already on tour this year, 7,300. And then Andrew Landry is 68. And let me flip over to something here really quick because Landry's name caught my attention. And I'm now showing the PGA Live leaderboard from last week. So this has all the strokes gained data. If you want to see this throughout the tournament, it come in here, it refreshes. It has the running, DraftKings scoring. It has the running strokes gained data. And if you sort by tee to green, which is essentially like who played the best, right? I mean, putting is so volatile. Who played the best tee to green? Chez Reavie, of course, did. And I shouldn't say of course, but he played the best. Justin Thomas was second. Lost 7 strokes putting. That's another story for another day. We'll talk about that the next time Justin Thomas is in the field. But if you go down, you keep looking down this list, you get to Andrew Landry, who finished 43rd. He was like, let me count this really quick, 4, 8. He was like the 12th best in the field last week in tee to green, and he lost nearly 4 strokes putting. So if Andrew Landry continues to play well tee to green, which is much more predictable than his putting is, and he can get a hot putter, he might be a very interesting play this week, especially, again, because he shows up on this kind of good drive percentage. He's okay off the tee. He's kind of okay a lot of places. He doesn't make a ton of birdies, which would worry me in DraftKings scoring. But if you're down at $6,800, your options are pretty limited. I wouldn't kill you for having to go out here and roster Andrew Landry. I think there is enough to show, there's some signs of life there is what I'm getting at. Okay. Approach is always going to be important, so let's see if there's any interesting names here. It's usually some of the same guys. Hideki leads the way. Jason Kokrak, our homie Dustin Johnson. Chez again, who statistically having just a great year. Corey Connors again, and then Gary Woodland to kind of round that out. And then what was the last one that I wanted to see here? Let's do putting. So again, putting is pretty volatile, but I wanted to see who these putters are because it is a Donald Ross track, which usually means a lot of different tiers. It usually means difficult putts or tricky undulating greens. So the guys that lead the way here are Denny McCarthy, Vaughn Taylor, who just had a nice finish, Beau Hossler, Wyndham Clark, and Brandt Snedeker. Unfortunately, none of them really do much else well. I guess you could consider Wyndham Clark, who plays par 5s really well. He makes enough birdies. He puts the lights out. He'd be a guy at $7,100. I guess you could consider. Outside of that, I don't know. Denny McCarthy, I guess, because he plays par 3s well enough. He plays par 5s well enough, but I'm not super stoked about that. So Wyndham Clark might be the one guy at $7,100 that I would consider playing here. And then finally, let's wrap this up by going back to that strokes gain tool. And I just want to kind of show you, let's go back to this strokes gain total here. If you sort this field by salary and strokes gain total, Dustin Johnson, is far and away the best player in this field. Averages 2.2 strokes gained per round. Next closest guy in the field is, Hideki, 1.6. That's a pretty significant difference. The other guys at 10K, Ricky Fowler 1.3, Gary Woodland at 1.4. That's pretty far behind DJ. Let me tell you, he's far and away the best player in the field when you put it all together. When you look at just tee to green, this opens up a lot more guys. There's a lot. What you'll learn is, and if you haven't realized this already, there's a lot of bad putters on the PGA Tour. A lot of bad putters on the PGA Tour. So this brings back a lot of guys. So now DJ leads the way, but it's much closer with Hideki. Gary Woodland is there. Victor Hovland, again, we only have 14 rounds for him. So we have 14 measured rounds, but he's been great in those 14 measured rounds. Benny On, if he didn't have to putt, if you just gave it to him every time he was on the green, he'd be the best player in the world. Corey Connors shows up here. So a lot of similar names to what popped out on the other, some of the other sheets are popping up here as well, it's a good sign to see. Those are the players that we're honing in on. And let's wrap this up by looking at our who's hot, who's not tool here. And we're going to go tee to green, and kind of no surprise that in the last 30 days, Chez Reavie, hottest player in this field, averaging 2.8 strokes tee to green per round. DJ is second. So even when we look at this, and I know it's, again, this is kind of the point I was trying to make earlier. Tee to green, he is still the second best player in this field in the last 30 days, despite not having the results you would expect from DJ. He's been very un-DJ-like, and he is still one of the best players in this field in the last 30 days. He's the second best player. Victor Hovland, Billy Horschel, Troy Merritt, Gary Woodland fill out the top of this. And there's a name here at 6,900 that I do think is somewhat interesting. It's Sepp Straka. So this is tee to green. We're going to get to putting in a second. Tee to green, Sepp gained nearly, 6 strokes in 2 rounds at the Travelers before missing the cut. Was great in the final round at the U.S. Open, was great in the first round of the U.S. Open, played well for a couple of rounds at the RBC Canadian. He's just been pretty volatile, but he's been more good than bad. I would describe this as for Sepp Straka. The problem is the putter, which, hang on, we'll get to that thought in a second here. So let me switch over to putting. And I want to do a couple of things here. I want to look at the hottest putters, and this is taken against their baseline. So our homeboy Luke List at $7,700 is the hottest putter right now. So this compares his last 30 days, in which he's averaging 1.2 strokes per gains per round putting, compared to his baseline. His baseline is that he's a losing putter. So he's up nearly a stroke and a half every single round putting on his baseline in the last 30 days. So that is interesting. But those are usually the guys. These are the guys I usually would stay away from. The argument is, wow, their putter's hot. Can they stay hot? I'd argue they're playing over their head at the moment, right? I want guys that are on the opposite side of this, guys that are historically long time great putters that might not be putting well, assuming that comes back and you are right back on track. So this is kind of where Sepp Straka comes back into play here at $6,900, because if you look at his putting rounds, he's absolutely horrendous. Lost 4 strokes in the first round of the Travelers Championship, which is absurd. Lost another 2 in the second round before slamming his trunk and going home. He is basically... So he's about a neutral putter this season. He loses about 1/10 of a stroke every single round. Right now, he's losing 1.2 per round, okay, in the last 30 days. It's been a really bad run putting for him. If he gets this figured out, that tee to green game, what we saw is there. One other name, I guess actually 2 names that popped up here. One we kind of already talked about is Dustin Johnson. When that putter gets right, he's going to win a ton of golf tournaments. But here's the one that I was kind of surprised about. It's Ricky Fowler. So Ricky Fowler, we know, historically, great putter. He averages about a half a stroke per round this season on the plus side. Well, he's about a half a stroke per round on the negative side right now. Lost in 2 rounds, the second round and the fourth round of the U.S. Open, combined to drop nearly 4 strokes there, which have really plummeted his average a little bit. So I would suspect that Ricky gets that putter going here shortly. I suspect that DJ gets that putter here going here shortly, and those guys make a lot of noise when it happens. That's it. That is the preview for this week's Rocket Mortgage Classic. We'll do the giveaway again for a month of DFS on demand. It worked well. Enjoyed the comments I got from everybody. So a couple ways that you can enter this. Like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below on YouTube, and I'm going to give you the field, or I'll give you the studs. All right, so you have to choose who's going to win this golf tournament. Someone from the 10Ks or the rest of the field. Pick your side, let me know. If you're listening on iTunes or anywhere else that you have the opportunity, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, let me know if you want the field or the top 4 guys, the 10K guys or plus. I'll draw some names and we'll get you access to the site. Best of luck this week. I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.